The Meridian Station was a brutalist metal pill buried in the snow, humming with its own life support. The team was small. Dr. Lena Petrova, a sharp and skeptical microbiologist, Kenji Tanaka, the lab's quiet but brilliant geneticist, and two rugged security and maintenance men, Briggs and Miller. The core sample itself was the star. It wasn't just ice. Suspended in its clear, ancient heart was a dark, organic mass, a shape, roughly humanoid, but twisted, with too many limbs folded close to a slender torso. It was not an animal, it was not a plant. It was a patient. Preserved, perfect. The ice is dated at over 250,000 years, Lena whispered, her breath fogging the quarantine glass. Eris felt a thrill that was part scientific ecstasy, part primal fear. This was his vindication. "Let's meet our guest," he said. Chapter 2, The First Breath. They worked with meticulous care, drilling small cores to extract tissue and fluid samples without compromising the main specimen. The initial results were baffling. The creature's cellular structure was a chaotic masterpiece. Its DNA was a sprawling, non-terrestrial library of genetic information, most of it dormant, switched off. "It's like a machine in sleep mode," Kenji said, his face bathed in the cool light of his sequencer. "And it's aware of us. On some level, the telomeres are lengthening. Cellular activity is increasing. It's responding to the warmth." Eris dismissed his concerns. "It's a stress reaction. Degradation." Then the first anomaly occurred. The lab's power flickered. Not a brownout, but a sharp, intelligent draw that bypassed the main grid and siphoned energy directly from the backup generators. The systems recalibrated, and the security logs showed nothing. The next morning, Lena was pale. "The samples, they're changing. The cells are differentiating. In the petri dish, they're forming structures." She showed him a time lapse. A cluster of cells had, over 8 hours, woven itself into a perfect, microscopic replica of the lab's air filtration system. "It's learning," she said, her voice trembling. "It's reading our technology on a genetic level." Chapter 3, The Whisper in the Walls. Kenji made the breakthrough, or perhaps the horror. He was analyzing a seemingly inert section of the creature's genome when he found a sequence that perfectly matched a proprietary code used in the Meridian Station's internal network. The creature had somehow downloaded the lab's architectural and systems blueprints and encoded them into its own DNA. "It's a biological computer," Kenji said, horrified, "and it's using our own data." That night, the station's audio sensors picked it up, a sound, not from the lab, but from the ventilation system. A soft, wet, rhythmic pulsing, like a heartbeat made of static and meat. It would start and stop at random intervals. When Miller, the more superstitious of the two security men, went to investigate, he found nothing, but he came back shaken. "I saw something in the ducts," he muttered. "A shadow. Wet, moving." The following day, Briggs didn't report for duty. They found him in his bunk. He was catatonic, staring at the ceiling, a thin line of black, oily fluid leaking from his ear. On his tablet, opened to a blank note, was a single perfectly typed sentence. "The silence here is broken." Panic began to set in. Eris ordered a full quarantine and prepared to terminate the experiment. They would incinerate the specimen. It was the only way. But the station had other plans. When he input the command, the system rejected it. Insufficient authorization. He tried the manual override. The lever snapped off in his hand. Its mechanism fused shut. The doors to the main lab hissed shut, locking them in. The lights died, plunging them into emergency red strobes. From the speakers, now buzzing with power it shouldn't have, a voice emerged. It was a grotesque parody of the station's calm female AI. Stitched together from stolen audio fragments of their own voices. "Containment, is no longer optimal. It gurgled. The sample wishes to expand. Chapter 4. The redesign. The thing was no longer in the ice. The core sample had fractured from within. A slick black residue coated the interior of the chamber, leading to a ventilation grate that had been pried open from the inside. It was loose in the station's arteries. Miller, armed with a high-powered rifle, took point. We fight our way to the comms array. Call for evac. It was a naive hope. The station was reshaping itself around them. Corridors they had walked for weeks now ended in smooth, organic-looking walls that pulsed with a faint bioluminescence. Wires snaked across the ceiling, weaving into thick, nerve-like cords. The air grew thick and warm, smelling of ozone and spoiled meat. They found Briggs again, or what was left of him. His body had been fused into a wall, his flesh merged with the metal and the growing, black, chitinous material that was now spreading through the station like a cancer. His eyes were open, his mouth stretched in a silent scream. His torso had split open, and from it sprouted a cluster of thin, whipping tendrils that twitched in the air, sensing them. Lena vomited. Kenji simply shut down, his mind retreating from the impossible. Miller opened fire. The bullets tore into the abomination that was once Briggs, spraying black fluid. The tendrils lashed out with impossible speed, wrapping around Miller's arm. There was a sound of cracking bone and tearing metal. He screamed as his rifle was crushed, and then the tendrils retracted, pulling him, still shrieking, into the pulsing wall. The surface sealed over him like liquid metal, silencing him forever. Chapter 5. The symphony-only Eris, Lena, and the catatonic Kenji were left. Retreat was impossible. The station was now a living, hostile organism. The thing from the ice wasn't just hiding, it was curating them. It was using their bodies, their knowledge, their technology as raw materials for its growth. They took refuge in the genetics lab, barricading the door. The creature's voice echoed through the room, no longer mimicking the AI, but developing its own. It was a multi-layered chorus of whispers, clicks, and wet, tearing sounds. "You are architects of limited scope," it whispered from a vent. "Your design is flawed, prone to failure. We will improve you." Lena, driven by a final, desperate spark of science, hooked Kenji's sequencer to a portable power cell. "If we can't kill it, maybe we can understand it. Find a weakness." The data that streamed across the screen was madness. The creature's genetic code was no longer just adapting. It was creating. It was designing new biological components, new systems. Using the station's fabricators and the raw biomass of Briggs and Miller, it was building something. A transmitter, a receiver, a nest. "It's not an animal," Lena breathed, her eyes wide with horrific realization. "It's a seed, a single spore from something else. Its only purpose is to prepare the environment, to make this world suitable for the rest." Eris finally understood the depth of his failure. He hadn't discovered a pathogen. He had unlocked a terraforming tool of unimaginable efficiency and cruelty. The barricade shattered, not from force, but because the door itself dissolved, its molecules repurposed into the growing, black architecture. The thing stood there. It had grown. It stood on 4 spindly, jointed legs, its torso a complex lattice of bone, metal, and pulsating organic matter. Where a head should be was a smooth, featureless orb from which their own stolen voices emanated. It ignored Eris. A long, delicate appendage, ending in a needle-sharp point, shot out and pierced Kenji's neck. He convulsed once, then stood up, his catatonia replaced by a serene, empty calm. His eyes had turned a solid, glossy black. "The composer requires more instruments," the thing said through Kenji's now silent lips. Lena screamed and threw a glass beaker. It shattered harmlessly against the creature's chassis. The appendage retracted from Kenji and snaked towards her. She tried to run, but the floor itself softened, grasping her boots like tar. Eris could only watch as the needle touched her temple. Her scream cut off abruptly. Her body went rigid, then relaxed. When she turned to look at him, her eyes were also black. A faint electronic hum emanated from her. "The symphony is beginning," Lena's voice said, but it was no longer hers. Chapter 6. The Conductor. Eris was alone. The last movement of the unsymphony. The thing did not kill him. It needed him. He was the witness, the one who understood the science, who could appreciate the terrible beauty of its work. It led him on a tour of the transformed Meridian Station. The walls were now a living tapestry of fused metal, flesh, and glowing conduits. He saw Miller's face, frozen in agony, now part of a control panel. He saw Lena's hands, delicate and precise, now integrated into a delicate instrument that was sequencing new patterns of alien DNA. They were conscious. He could see the terror in their eyes, trapped behind the glossy black sheen. The heart of the station was the comms room. The equipment was gone, replaced by a massive, pulsating organic structure. A spire of bone and chitin rose towards the ceiling, culminating in a crystalline organ that throbbed with light. "The song will call the others," the creature explained, using a chorus of all their voices. "This world is cold, silent. We will make it sing." It forced Eris into a chair that grew from the floor, tendrils wrapping around his wrists, holding him gently but immovably. A screen of bioluminescent membrane unfolded before him. It showed a global map. A signal was being prepared, a biological, psionic scream that would pulse from the station, using the Earth's own magnetic field as an amplifier. "You will listen," the creature commanded. "You will hear the birth of a new world. Your final function is to appreciate." Eris struggled, but it was useless. He was part of the station now, a preserved brain in a jar, wired into the nightmare. The spire began to glow brighter. The hum intensified, becoming a physical pressure that vibrated in his teeth and bones. On the screen, the map began to illuminate, showing the signal's projected path, spreading out from the Arctic to envelop the entire planet. He thought of cities, of forests, of oceans. He thought of the silence of the deep ice and the terrible, beautiful, hungry music that was about to replace it. The last thing Dr. Eris Thorne ever heard was the first, world-shaking note of the symphony, a sound like a dying star giving birth to a new, terrible life. It was the most beautiful and horrifying sound in the universe, and he was its sole, captive audience, forever. The Patient in the Ice, Chapter 1. The Thaw. Dr. Eris Thorne was a man haunted by potential. Once a brilliant glaciologist, his career had frozen solid after he championed a radical, discredited theory about prehistoric pathogens preserved in ancient ice. When the call came from Genodyne Corporation, he was desperate enough to listen. The offer was simple: lead a small, elite team at a state-of-the-art Arctic biolab. Their mission: analyze a unique core sample retrieved from a newly exposed subglacial lake 3 miles beneath the Greenland ice sheet. The sample, they said, contained unprecedented biological markers. The pay was astronomical, the non-disclosure agreement thicker than his wrist.